Greetings, Church History 1. We will be presenting on St. Francis of Assisi for Dr. Arnold's class, Church History 1. And in our group is Ben Mosier, Daniel Pitts, Lucas Taylor, and Hunter Gately. A little biographical sketch of St. Francis. He was born in 1181 in Assisi, Italy, and he died in 1226, also in Assisi, Italy. He was born to a mother and a father. The father was a merchant, and the mother was Catholic, and he grew up in a wealthy family, and he grew up in a spoiled sense. And he spent a lot of his growing up living in sin, with a lot of drinking, partying, got in trouble for curfew a lot, kind of a wild upbringing. His initial goal was to be a knight, and he went to war, actually, Assisi versus Phrygia, and during that war, Assisi the army of Assisi got annihilated. And through that, Francis got taken to the prison for a year. He was taken to prison. Most of the people in the Assisi army were killed, but since he was wearing nobleman's clothing, they knew he was rich and they'd get a reward for him. So they kept him alive, and he was bailed out a year later, and he was taken back to his family. And during that time, he had this kind of season in his life was very much of life change. He had a new view on leprosy and people that had leprosy. He had a vision from the Lord, and this is kind of a bring change in his life from spoiled kid to adult that wants to live for the Lord now, with a whole transition in living. He then went from looking after being a merchant, and then his whole life changed to he was now going to be living for the Lord completely. He was a wanderer of sorts. He wandered throughout Italy and throughout the rest of the region, and he started the Franciscan order. And most of his life was focused on gospel simplicity and radical obedience, which will be highlighted in the other presenters' focuses. That was kind of a biographical sketch, and he is the patron saint of the merchants, of animals, and ecology. And one random fact about Francis of Assisi is on October 4th, there's a blessing of animals that takes place at some churches, and he is known for that because he is the patron saint of animals.
I'm St. Francis, and I like to live wildly.
St. Francis's major contributions. He was a popular figure. His name is well known, but he's a misconstrued figure because biographers after his death gave a false impression of his life and kind of inflated some facts because he was so well liked and so well thought of. Two of his major contributions in the church were the Testament of Francis and the Early Rule, which basically explained from Francis how he thought the Christian ought to live and what the most Christ-like life looked like. That was something that he sought to emulate by him and then by his followers in the present day, and then also in the Franciscan movement. And so here's a quote from him: "We should have nothing but food and sufficient clothing, remembering the humility and poverty of Christ." So this quote very well sums up Francis's outlook as a Christian on life, of having very minimal things and even living in poor situations when it wasn't necessary, but he thought that was the most Christ-like thing. And so this Franciscan movement, it started with him and it's continued today. The Franciscans were the only ones that were allowed in the Holy Land when it was under Muslim control, because he is very passive, very non-militaristic, he wants to care for others and not harm them. He was canonized in the Catholic Church about 2 years after his death, and the reason why that was because Francis bore these marks on his hands of similar to what Christ would have had from being nailed to the cross. And so the Catholic Church considered that to be a mark given from heaven of his holiness and his sainthood, when in reality that was probably some sort of disease from his work with lepers and with other sick people, not some heaven-sent mark. And then this final quote here: "Preach the gospel always if necessary, use words." That is a quote that's often attributed to St. Francis, but most likely he never said that. If you take a look at his life, you can understand where that came from. He had a heavy emphasis on preaching, but also on good works. But John MacArthur actually, he changed his quote, kind of moved some words around. So his quote was, "Preach the gospel and always use words," as a revision to St. Francis.
I'm a leper.
All right, so we've talked about kind of the ideas that St. Francis had, a lot of his early life, and the things he'll be remembered for. So this is going to be about kind of the people around him. What effect does he have on people? Who agrees with him? Who doesn't agree with him? What are we working with here? So the people against St. Francis are going to be anybody who's opposing this lifestyle choice that he's making, because he's not really throwing out these new theological ideas. It's live a life as close to Christ as possible. Who in the Catholic Church is going to stand up and say, no, that's not what we're supposed to do? Nobody. So the opponents of this are going to be a little bit more subtle. These are going to be the people who want to live lifestyles that are a bit more worldly. Most notably is going to be his father. His father's a merchant. He's very well-to-do. He doesn't really want a whole lot to do with the religious life. He likes the lifestyle he lives, and the idea of getting rid of all of this does not appeal to him at all. And honestly, it doesn't appeal to a lot of people if you really stop and think about it. St. Francis actually ends up later in his life, after he's imprisoned, after he gets out and has this conversion experience. He gives all of his things away. Most notably, his armor that he received from his father, he gives it back to his father, and just has nothing to do with them after that, as far as we can tell. Says, you can take your money, I don't want anything to do with it.
Dad, I don't see the big deal. Son, quit giving all your money to the poor. Where'd you go? Good grief, he's naked!
The other opponents are going to be anyone in the clergy who are living this really well-to-do lifestyle, probably starting that trail of just a little bit of corruption, really enjoying, like, hey, there's a lot to be gained in being leader in the church. We don't really want to get rid of it all. Also in the clergy, the people who kind of view him as a nut. You know, you've got this guy, he's saying we should live really simply, we should just get rid of all of this nice stuff we've built up. And then he goes one step further and he starts preaching to the animals. And a lot of the clergy are not quite sure what to do with that. So they're actually going to label him as God's fool. I guess that would be a diminutive, but in the right light, you can take that as a good thing. It's a fool for God. Obviously, we don't practice the preaching to animals a whole lot now, so we kind of didn't take that away from him, but we stopped the name calling after canonization. And then a story that's attributed to St. Francis is going to be the Wolf of Gubbio. There's this big old wolf terrorizing this little village, and he was killing animals, killing people, destroying stuff, everything. St. Francis finds his way down there and says, you know, I'm going to confront this head on. Christ will protect me, and we'll deal with this. So he takes some of the villagers out with him. They quickly turn tail and run. So it's him in this dark forest against a wolf. And through the power of Christ, almost instantaneously, upon saying, you know, heal, he does. And the wolf's tamed the rest of his life. In fact, later on, when the wolf dies, the village actually mourns its loss because they've actually grown connected to this animal. And they said it was a reminder of what a peaceful lifestyle, living a Christ-like life, will look like. Even this vicious wolf will be tame, will be friends. And all that.
Don't eat me, wolf. Hey, wolf, stop eating everyone. God says to. Okay.
So that's the life of St. Francis of Assisi.
Alrighty.
That is the life.
Okay, how long is this?